What is going on, all of you plucky heroes out there in the world? I am Megam, so thank you for watching this review video, whether you are a new or returning viewer. Appreciate you stopping by. Apologies for the not great lighting. I'm redoing my setup. I reset my computer, so I'm still working to get that back to where it was before. Also, I'm sorry if I'm a little stuffy. I'm catching up a little bit of a cold. It's that time of year, I suppose, but that's not stopping me from reviewing this game, the Plucky Squire, which came out in September of 2024 from the first game by the studio All Possible Futures. However, you may know some of the people involved, including James Turner, who was one of the artists on Pokemon Gen 8, I believe it was. He worked at Game Freak for a little while there. And yeah, a few people came together, made the studio, and made this game published by Devolver Digital. And it's a charming little game. I want to get into it a little bit. The way I like to structure these reviews is kind of do a non-spoiler section at the very beginning, and then in the very end of the video I'll kind of talk about some of my spoilery thoughts related to like maybe some of the levels, the ending, that sort of stuff. So, but I don't want to spoil any of you who want to try out this game for yourself, so I'm just gonna dive into it a little bit. I'm gonna start a new save file here so that you don't have to see it. So right off the bat, this game has like decent accessibility options. Right off the bat, I mean, you have adventure mode and story mode. So if you're one of those people who like to just play through a game to see the story, which this game's story is like, because it's styled like a book, it is, I wouldn't say it's the most in-depth story, far from it, but it's framed as more of a story, a narrative. So I could see, if you want to just like see the game through and mostly take in the charm of this game, because the big thing about this game is, like I mentioned a little bit before, it's structured as a storybook. You play as the hero, the protagonist of a storybook in a child's bedroom, who's like this child's favorite hero, like growing up reading these books, and you play as that hero. And the neat part about it, as you've probably seen from trailers, is that you can switch between the book and the 3D environment, which is kind of cool. Think like something along the lines of those sections in Mario Odyssey is what I like to think of, where you have those 2D sections. Of course, it's mainly a 3D platformer. There are those 2D sections you could jump into and jump out of. Think of like that, but the whole game kind of revolves around the mechanic. So the presentation for this game is through the roof. I mean, this is the reason why I, along with many people, were excited about this game going into, is just the art style of both the 2D and 3D sections, just like the idea behind switching between those, just the potential of that gameplay and the presentation. What's really funny is like just having the narrator in the background. It's one of those games that's pretty fun. Like I said before, it's really structured like a storybook that you follow along with. I'm not gonna... Can I skip through this whole thing? No, okay. Unfortunately, can't skip through these cutscenes, so I'm probably not gonna get super far into the gameplay. But it's kind of like, and it's funny because this, thankfully came up before, but it dropped right before The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, and at its core, the combat and the adventuring is pretty similar to something like a top-down Zelda game. So if you're a fan of that gameplay style, you may kind of gravitate towards how this game works. Combat's pretty simple. You have a sword, but you also have different maneuvers you can do. You can throw your sword like a boomerang and call it back. You could do like a spin move like you can in the Zelda games. A few different combat options there, but it's pretty basic. You're just kind of going around attacking enemies. Where I think this game really shines is, of course, with the presentation. I mean,
serious beeswax.
Nice. Just like how they present the game, I think is absolutely beautiful. And for me, that carries a lot of the game. But honestly, and I won't get into too much of it in this non-spoiler part, unfortunately, but some of the puzzle solving is really cool. There's this one mechanic that's my favorite puzzle in the game. I won't spoil any of the specific ones that they do, but essentially you see these words in the book here, right? It's a picture book, it's a storybook, so you're gonna have words and stuff. Sometimes you will come across words that you can like swap out with other words. So like say like here, the word music here, was one of those words that I could swap out. I could pick it up and throw it and put another word in place of that. And 80% of the time you throw a new word in that blank spot where the word music, for example, here it'll change something in the book. I think that is a really cool idea. There are also a few achievements locked behind like really dumb ones that were really fun to discover. Like I said, I'm not going to make any specific mentions, just want you to discover those for yourself, right? That's part of the fun of it. Those are really cool puzzles. And like the 2D and 3D sections, of course, were like the main highlight in terms of the mechanics here, but those puzzles in particular were really, really good. So yeah, basically you can see like general gameplay here. You got your sword attacks. You have to unlock some of the other sword attacks as you go along. You can buy them from shops. You can also do like a dodge roll. So pretty much, like I said, kind of like a top-down Zelda game if you're into that. The currency in this game are these little light bulbs that you can collect from defeating enemies. Sometimes like slashing bushes or trees will give you these light bulbs as well. There are also collectible, oh, it's not in here. There are a few collectibles in the game. Minor nitpick with them. So what's really cool is there are some concept arts, like from the developers as they were working on the game. Like you can collect those in the form of art scrolls, which is actually really a neat implementation of concept art. I really like that. As well as these little things, I think they're called glitch birds. One of my minor nitpicks with this game is they don't really track which ones you collect, especially because this is a chapter. Like it's structured in chapters, like you would a storybook, right? That's how the game is structured. And you can go back and replay chapters, but there's no easy way to jump into the middle of an old chapter to go back and collect any art scrolls. And there's really no easy way to see which scrolls you've collected already, which items, or the glitch birds, I don't even think are tracked at all. The closest you get is the menu that shows you the concept art, but you have to like go back and remember which ones you haven't collected, and that's kind of a pain. That's why I got most of them as I played through, but I didn't go back and try to collect all of them because it was so hard to track which ones I had gotten already. So that's super minor nitpick though. The collectibles were definitely not the focus of this game, but would have been a nice little thing. At its core, this is a narrative adventure game that does some really cool stuff. I wish I could get to a 3D section, but I don't think I'm going to. See, it's funny, and I'm going to address this because like, I'm sure if you're watching this review video, you've heard about the mixed reviews on this game. And one of the biggest criticisms I see, which I totally understand, is, well, I guess there's a couple of them. One of the major ones is the fact that the dialogue, a lot of people feel interrupts the gameplay. There are a lot of options, that, like I showed before, that the dialogue isn't skippable, the cutscenes aren't skippable, because it's presented as that narrative adventure. They really want you to pay attention and feel like you're reading a storybook, which not everybody wants to do, to be fair. And from what I could tell, it seemed like some people felt like they were misled with the marketing in terms of that. Personally, I never felt that because the game is always presenting itself with that book format. We knew that from the trailers, and honestly, I really like that about the presentation. I think that adds to the feeling of like the picture book nature of the game, but I definitely could understand the frustration if you're like, oh, you're wandering around and then all of a sudden you're interrupted by like a couple minutes of just like speech bubbles and dialogue, which you can like speed read through, but you can't fully skip. So that's a totally valid criticism. You know what I mean? I totally understand that. For me personally, it doesn't bother me. I think it adds to the charm of the game. I don't mind reading some more dialogue and sitting through. Like I said, the story isn't like super in depth or anything, but it adds to the presentation. Another criticism I see is just like the gameplay being kind of basic, which is fair. I mean, like I said, at its core, it is a top-down 2D Zelda game in terms of that basic gameplay. Where it really distinguishes itself is with like the wordplay puzzles or with the puzzles that have you switch between 2D and 3D planes, which, yeah, unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to get far enough into the game here because it takes a little while to get to your first big 3D section. One of the things that I do find a little bit annoying with that mechanic is like, I feel like there are always like big segments of like, look at that. There are always like big, like, they're very divvied up. There are moments where they kind of mix and match 2D and 3D, and I think those sections are great. But almost every chapter, you start off in the 2D area, in the book, and then you like, oh, this is the designated 3D gameplay part, and then you know what I mean? I kind of wish they interwove them a little bit more. The focus here is definitely on... Am I supposed to go this way? I don't remember. The focus here is like I don't want to say 90, that's probably too much. I'd say like 75% of the gameplay is in the book, in the 2D sections. The 3D is not as prominent, I will say. I think it's one of my bigger criticisms of the game. Also, the 3D sections aren't the most amazing. I mean, it's like your typical 3D platformer with those sections. And, you know, they introduce new gimmicks and stuff. Oh, I was supposed to go that way. They'll introduce new gimmicks along the way to kind of experiment and not make every level feel the exact same. And every time you pop out of the book, the whole environment in the 3D, the bedroom that you're in for the kid is like completely rearranged to something different with new themes and everything, which does make it feel fresh. So I feel like it doesn't overstay its welcome in that regard. But the 3D sections themselves aren't the most interesting. There are a lot of just like empty spaces on the desk that you just kind of run around and there's really nothing to do. Sometimes enemies, sometimes light bulbs to collect, but the 2D sections for me is where this game really shines, both in terms of presentation and in terms of just more level variety. But the 3D sections aren't bad, I want to clarify. They're just, you know, they didn't blow me away. Whereas some of the 2D sections really did, especially with like the wordplay puzzles, and just like the art style of the different areas you explore. What was the other criticism I was thinking of that I was going to address? The dialogue, the 3D sections. I feel like there was something else, but the game could use a little more polish, I think. Especially in some of the 3D sections, there was a little bit of frame stuttering, even on this version, which I'm playing on the Xbox version, by the way. I think the Switch version is not the best one to pick up. I've heard it's kind of rough, so definitely keep that in mind if you plan on playing this on the Switch. If you played on the Switch, let me know in the comments below what your experience was, if it was bad. It was not too bad. But yeah, so I understand the criticisms thrown at this game. I think for me personally, I just really like the charm of this game. And so you'll occasionally have moments like we're about to see here, where they throw these different mini games at you. This one's pretty fun. This is going to be like a Punch-Out almost. It's very much inspired by Punch-Out, like a mini game style. A lot of the boss fights in this game will be like a new mini game style like this. Rather than just like a traditional boss fight with the regular combat. There are a few of those in the game for sure, so it's not all just mini games, but I don't know. I think I could see people arguing that this is not like a consistent vision in terms of gameplay for the game, but I think it's really fun. And they go easy on you. It's not nearly as difficult as something like a Punch-Out, because I am not good at Punch-Out, trust me, and I am doing just fine here. Oh, there we go. There are some moments that are definitely janky. I think this game could use a little more time in the oven. I know it was delayed a couple times already as it was. There we go. You know, but like I think it could use maybe a little more time for a little more polish, like another few months or so, because there are some jittery moments. There is some jank in certain areas, but it's so charming. It honestly, the charm is what carried me through, and it's not a long game at all. It is maybe what, 10 hours, if even that. It's not a long game, so depending on how you value like monetary value to game length, if you're one of those gamers, like that's totally fair. You might feel like you don't get enough gameplay, but then again, it doesn't feel bloated. It's a very concise experience that, in my opinion, doesn't really overstay its welcome. Maybe towards the end of the final level it dragged on a little more, but like not that much, to be honest. So I really appreciate just how just clean and concise of an experience it is. I don't know, it's funny because I understand I understand the criticisms of this game for sure. I really understand it. The simple gameplay, the dialogue constantly interrupting you, like I understand those criticisms, but for me, that doesn't really, and maybe it's just because of my expectations for this game. You know, I saw some people that were like extremely hyped for this game, like this is going to be the next big indie game, which I think it is a great indie game for sure. But maybe some people had too high of expectations, I don't know. But like for me, it's like, I think what people are criticizing this game for me adds to the charm. You know, I don't mind that the gameplay is relatively simple. I don't mind that there's more dialogue because that's intentional. It's part of the presentation, which to me, the presentation far and away carries this game for me. Just to talk about the final boss without spoilers, I liked the final boss. Thought it was really fun. I could see not everybody liking it though. I like the different characters. The writing can be pretty witty and funny. And once again, to just I don't want to keep reiterating myself, but the art style, the presentation is amazing. The theming's really good, and I don't know, if you're a sucker for those kind of indie games that just like present something new to you in such a fun and like charming way, I think you're gonna get an absolute kick out of this. And honestly, I think the gameplay being simple makes it more approachable. I could see this being a fun game for kids too, to really go through and enjoy, because it's really near the end it gets a little challenging, but it doesn't get ever like too difficult. It really, I think, is balanced quite well. But you know, for people who want more of a challenge, you know, maybe might not be as many options here. I don't think there's a difficulty select. Maybe once you beat the game, I don't know. You know, let me know in the comments below. But it's just like, I don't know. It's so witty, it's so charming, and I think that really carries this game for me. You know, it's nothing. I guess the 2D and 3D plane switching and the wordplay are really unique. Everything else, like the core of the game, is nothing you haven't seen before. But it's about the stuff around it, the stuff they present you with, the different puzzles, just the enemy and environment variety that I think really carries this game. So if you're a fan of top-down 2D Zelda, you know, and you are a fan of this style of charm, if that just really gravitates towards you, I would recommend it. I would say give it a shot. You know, it's not a long game. It's what, I think $30 maybe? So not too expensive either. It's a really fun time, and I would definitely recommend it if you were at all vaguely interested. You know, I know it's been getting a mixed reception online, but at least give it a shot and see what you think. You know, that's what I would recommend, because not a huge buy-in and doesn't take up too much of your time, which I respect. And just the presentation is just super charming. I keep saying that. But with that, that's going to do it for the non-spoiler part of this review. Just very quickly, I'm going to go through some of the spoiler parts of this video just to reiterate some of the stuff. I'm going to jump into my other save file, but I'll give you a few seconds to click away. If you've not played this game and are in any way, shape, or form vaguely interested in checking it out, do not watch this part. I'm going to give you a few seconds to kind of click away. So, or I'll give you a few. All right. Oops. All right. Let me go back to my save file here. Oh, wrong one. I really like the final boss. I really like that a lot. With the whole shmup section against Humgrump, I thought that was pretty fun and kind of like an amalgamation of all the different previous minigames you had done. I will say a couple of the minigames I really didn't like. The bow and arrow one I wanted to like more, but the controls for like hitting the flies was a little weird. And the one that was like Puyo Puyo, where you play as Violet and you're trying to like the puzzle game one essentially, that one kicked my butt so many times, especially the one at the final boss. That was rough, but like the rhythm-based one, the Punch-Out one was fun. There were some fun ones in there. I'm gonna go through the art gallery quickly so you can see which scrolls I got, which ones I didn't. This is my minor nitpick with the game, is the collectibles felt a bit like an afterthought. The concept art's super duper cool. Like, that's such a cool collectible. I'm a sucker for that in games like this. But like, I have no way of knowing. I assume this scroll was in chapter 1. I have no way of knowing, you know, but I missed, I think, 7 total. So I got most of them, which were really cool, you know, and this was a cool collectible. The glitch birds, I don't really know. But like, if I go to chapter replay, it doesn't tell me, you know, which scrolls were in which chapter, you know, so bit of a minor nitpick there. But the final boss I really liked. I'm at the very end. Oh, okay. No, I don't want to do this. No. Let me go to like chapter replay. I guess because the thing is there's really no new game plus, from what I understand. I'll just replay one of the chapters, I guess. Not that I'm going to be in this section of the review super long, but that's bro. I just did the same thing. One of those, some of those wordplay puzzles were super fun. You know, just experimenting, mixing, and matching with the different ones. Like, well, one of them was related to the frog. That was funny. One of them was with the statue, and that gave me an achievement. But then there was an art scroll behind it. That was interesting. How they did that. Yeah, let me do chapter replay. That's what I want to do. I'll jump into, I don't know. What's a fun one? Arty is cool because of the environment. But yeah, like those wordplay puzzles were honestly some of my favorite puzzles in the game. The 2D and 3D switching, of course, was really cool. And kind of the main highlight of the game for sure.
Chapter 5. RT.
You know, I kind of wish you could skip these after you've already played the chapters. You know, like on chapter replays, I feel like that'd be pretty cool. So, like I said, there are some things this game could have used maybe a little more time in the oven for. But I think what it managed to do is just amazing. Just in terms of the presentation is the big thing, right? I kept saying that in my spoiler-free part. It's just amazing, and it's cool. Like, sometimes you'll notice like little 3D details going on outside of the book when you're in the book, which is kind of cool, and vice versa. It's just like it kind of plays with your mind a little bit in terms of those things. Oh, that's the art book, dude. You know, so that's just like super duper cool. And just, yeah, the writing is really clever and funny. Just the art style for especially the book sections. I wish the 3D sections were a little more interesting. Oh, look, it's a glitch bird, but I don't think that's one I can collect. I wish there was a little more something to the 3D sections, I think. There were some cool ones, especially the one where you got the jetpack. That was really fun. I really liked the jetpack sections. That was probably my favorite time the book was like, forced you to go into the room in 3D. And you had to go into the coffee mugs and do the shmup sections. I thought that was super fun. I understand not everybody's going to like that. I like shmup games, so if you don't like shmup games, I could see that being an issue, especially with the final boss, too, being pretty much all that. But I found that a good challenge. You know, I thought it was pretty well balanced in that regard. The only criticisms I have for this game are really, the 3D sections could have been a little more interesting and less forced, because it was always like, oh, start off in 2D, You're forced to go into 3D for a little bit and then jump back into 2D, right? It really wasn't super balanced, but then again, I don't know if part of it was like they weren't super confident in the 3D sections. I think it was really cool, but the 2D is where this game really, really shines, you know? And switching between the planes led to some cool puzzles, but definitely the 2D sections are where it was at. With those wordplay puzzles, honestly, like, if the game was just that, minus the 2D and 3D sections, yeah, I probably wouldn't have gained as much attention, but I think it could have been really fun in that regard. Let me know in the comments below, isn't that puzzle game Baba Is You kind of similar to that? Because I feel like I would enjoy that if I liked those puzzles a lot in this game. And if that's the whole gameplay mechanic of that game, I might be tempted to check that out. But definitely correct me in the comments below if that's not the case. But overall, I don't really know what else to say. It's just, it's unfortunate to see the mixed reception online. I think this is a really charming game. Don't expect your mind to be blown in terms of crazy gameplay with this game, between like switching between the 2D and 3D, right? It was a small team with a limited budget, so they could only do so much. What they managed to pull off here was honestly really, really cool. And just like the different kind of puzzles they were able to set up between switching between 2D and 3D. And like I said, honestly, this game could have been fully 2D and I would have loved it, you know, with those wordplay puzzles. Because I think that's where this game really shines, is the 2D book sections, or like you go into the 3D world and pop between another 2D plane. I think there's some really cool stuff they do there in terms of that with the environment. You know, I hope they continue to make more games. I imagine it wouldn't be like a sequel to Plucky Squire. It'd probably be something brand new. I mean, they could. I'd be there for it if they did a sequel too. But I'll be curious to see what the All Possible Futures does in the future. What are their possible futures, right? I hope there is one. I hope it's not like, oh, this game wasn't received amazingly well, so we just don't make a game anymore. Like, I hope that's not the case, you know, because this studio has a lot of talent. And I think, you know, Devolver, like I said, Devolver knows how to publish games. I said this time and time again. And they saw potential in this game. And while a lot of critics especially didn't, you know, that's okay. It's a really fun game that I think, you know, look into the reviews a little bit, but see what you think. You know, I would recommend it if you're at all a fan of that top-down Zelda gameplay with a little twist, you know, a little interesting twist with the 2D and 3D switching and the wordplay puzzles. I mean, those are super cool. Just the experimentation there is super fun. But with that, everybody, let me go back to the main menu for people who didn't watch the spoiler parts. Yeah, no, I don't want to replay that chapter anymore, just for the footage. That is going to do it for this review of the Plucky Squire. Like I said, published by Devolver Digital, developed by All Possible Futures. Really a really fun, charming adventure, narrative adventure, I want to say, because there's a lot of narrative, right? So if you're at all curious, I would recommend giving it a shot. You know, it's available on almost every platform. Not sure about the Switch version in terms of performance, but pretty much everything there, and $30, I believe, so not a huge buy-in, and not a long game either. It's like maybe 10 hours max if you go after all the scrolls and stuff, if even that. So it's a nice little charming adventure that I would recommend giving a shot if you're at all interested in that. But with that, that is going to do it for this review of the Plucky Squire. If you've played this game, let me know in the comments below what you thought of it. Do you agree with me? Do you agree with some of the major criticisms a lot of people seem to have of this game, or do you disagree with those? Let me know if you haven't played it. Let me know if you're interested in checking it out now. But with that, that's going to do it for this review. Thank you all again so much for watching. I will catch you all on the next video or live stream, and until then, take care, stay plucky.